Today, Americans across the country are commemorating 5 years since George Floyd's murder. Religious services, concerts, and vigils have been held throughout the day. Earlier, George Floyd's brother, Philonise Floyd, spoke about his brother at a graveside service in Houston, Texas, where they grew up.
May 25th, my brother was murdered for the world to see. That was a modern-day lynching, and everybody's seen that. So that's why people stood all around the world for George, because that was a tragedy.
All right, joining us now, NBC News correspondent Shaquille Brewster in Minneapolis, who's been covering this story for years for us. Shaq, I know that you've been going in and out of Minneapolis since this tragedy. Talk to us about how this community is commemorating this day.
Well, Eamon, I'm sure you probably hear in the background a part or piece of those commemorations. Sounds of Blackness, they're having a gospel concert for members of the community here. And then things will turn a little bit more solemn. There'll be a candlelight vigil as we approach the moment, the actual hour in which George Floyd was killed under the knee of Derek Chauvin exactly 5 years ago today. And I've been talking with members of the community. Yes, you mentioned for years, but especially today, as I've been here, and there's a mix of emotions. There's some disappointment, frankly, that they have not gotten the change that they've wanted to see, that they called for, that people came out to protest for. But they also say there is some hope. There have been some shifts, some reforms here in Minneapolis that they celebrate, and they still believe that there's an opportunity for more changes to come in the future. There's also a lot of uncertainty here, Eamon. The exact square where George Floyd was killed, this is still a source of much contention here in Minneapolis, as the city council and mayor are going back and forth over what to do with this area to both honor his life and legacy, but reopen it to the traffic and members of the public. That's something I talked to neighbors about just recently. I want you to listen to a little bit of those conversations.
There's no help out here for us.
What do you want to see happen to this area?
I don't mind what happens. Just don't count me out.
I believe my neighborhood is and always will be a community first, memorial second, and a protest zone third. And I think all those should be incorporated back into that corner.
And you mentioned that commemorations have been taking place across the nation. We saw the family of George Floyd in Houston, also in New York. In Houston, they were visiting his gravesite and also getting before cameras and renewing that call that we heard so often back in 2020, back in 2021. They were calling for national police reform legislation. It so far has not come to pass, and the political tides, I don't have to tell you, have certainly shifted since then, but they are making clear that they're not letting up their fight, and you have members of the community here saying that they're willing to join them in those new calls.
Shaq, can I ask you, you did incredible work for us on the ground covering this story. I know you had many, many late nights. You spoke to countless residents and community members. What is it like for you to be there right now, to reflect on the work that you did, the people that you've met, this story 5 years later?
Yeah, I have to be honest, it doesn't feel like it's been 5 years. We've been here so often after even the murder of George Floyd. I came the day after, hours after we saw that Facebook video shot by Darnella Frazier, who this evening just posted talking about and saying that she will never forget George Floyd. And this was a square that was completely packed. It was high emotions here. And I'm reconnecting with many of the same people I met that day and the days after. So it doesn't feel like it's been 5 years. There's been a trial that got us back here. There's been other events that got us back here in Minneapolis. But I'll tell you, there has been a shift in some of those conversations where initially it was anger, a lot of frustration, true disappointment. During the trial, you had some people saying they were relieved by the ultimate result. A word that kept coming up, and I'm frankly surprised by it in my conversations here in this most recent trip, is hope. People saying that they're hopeful for something to come in the future, even if they can't articulate specifically what that should be.
All right, Shaquille Brewster in Minneapolis for us. Shaquille, thank you as always, my friend. Great to see you. Joining us now is civil rights attorney Benjamin Crump, who represented the Floyd family, along with several others killed at the hands of police. Mr. Crump, it's great to have you on the show. I wanted to start with something our colleague just said there, and I want to get your reaction to it. He talked about the political tide in this country has shifted, and I want to get your thoughts about it. One of the things that we've seen in this country, certainly under this administration, is a retelling of the past and an attempt to try to retell the story of George Floyd in a different way than the way his family, his community, and so many of us remember him as. I want you to reflect a little bit on what this anniversary means in light of what this administration is trying to do to the legacy of George Floyd.
Well, that's the crux of the matter as we see it here on the 5-year anniversary of the killing of George Floyd. The actions by the Department of Justice just this week to end the consent decrees that were agreed upon by the city of Minneapolis and the city of Louisville, where Breonna Taylor was killed. It is almost as if they are trying to tell us we didn't see what we saw 5 years ago on today when Derek Chauvin had his knee on his neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. It's almost as if they are trying to erase the truth. They're trying to whitewash history. And so I believe that we should use their actions as greater motivation to fight even harder for the legacy of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery and all others who lost loved ones. This truly is a fight for equal justice under the law that will define America as it relates to equal justice.
Mr. Crump, can you speak at all to how the family is doing, their community, the people around them who love them? You know, I've spent a lot of time talking lately with Black Americans just reflecting on this election. Many of them feel this deep spiritual exhaustion right now, just at the rate at which, the speed at which it seems the pendulum has swung back at us, and the way in which we've been made to feel we can't even have these conversations anymore. As you said, like, we're told the things we've seen with our own eyes aren't real. How is the family doing as they still grieve, but they also see this rhetoric, this discourse play out so publicly?
Yes, ma'am. The family who we were all with in Houston, many of his immediate sisters and brothers, you know, they felt a sense of obligation that we don't let them turn back the tide on what we're trying to achieve, to say that George Floyd was a watershed moment in America, a watershed moment all across the world. And so we have to use that to continue to push forward. And the second thing I will say, ma'am, is the fact that we must never lose hope. We've made a lot of incremental progress in these 5 years. And yeah, I mean, we had historic justice. For the first time, we had police convicted on the state and federal level for killing a Black man in America. And so we don't take those things lightly. We have all kind of policies and consent decrees on state levels and local levels all across America. So we are making progress. We just have to remember history. Emmett Till was killed in 1955. It took almost a decade to get the Civil Rights Act of 1964 passed. But yet, people's eyes were on the prize because they remembered Mamie Till showing Emmett's face. We remember George Floyd tortured to death by Derek Chauvin's knee.
Mr. Crump, you were talking about incremental progress. I want to read you how one publication, Axios, described this moment 5 years later. Quote, "The America that marched for George Floyd 5 years ago is gone, buried beneath a backlash that has hardened, for now, into a new political and cultural order." What do you make of that? Do you agree with that assessment?
Well, partly, but we must always remember, at least as Black America's Attorney General Reverend Al and others refer to me as, we must know our history. Since 1619, for 400 years. America's original sin, discrimination and racism, we've been grappling with it. And so when you think of all the things like, you know, being defined as 3/5 of a citizen when we first founded this country, to the Dred Scott decision, that there were no rights that a black man had that a white man was bound to respect. And all through Jim Crow and Jim Crow Jr., I mean, we've overcome all of this. So I tell people we must stay encouraged. Please, please understand that we as a people have been through too many thunderstorms to worry about these raindrops that's happening from this administration. We gonna be all right.
Thank you, Benjamin Crump. Can always count on you to share a word.
Thank you.
Thanks for making time for us tonight.